Hello, bedtime thinkers, and welcome to the Bedtime Discoveries. It is always a joy to have you here, as together we drift into quiet wonder of science, gently carried along by curiosity and soft imagination. Tonight, we are going to travel into a hidden world, a world beneath the soil, where tiny creatures live extraordinary lives. We will be exploring life inside an ant colony. Though they are small, ants have built societies that rival the complexity of our own, filled with teamwork, structure, and quiet resilience. Before we begin, I would love to know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Perhaps you are winding down the evening, or maybe listening as the morning sun rises. Share your location and time in the comment below. It's always so special to see how far and wide this little community stretches. And if you enjoy these soft journeys into science, please do gently tap the like button and subscribe to the Bedtime Discoveries. It helps our little corner of calm grow and ensures you never miss another sleepy exploration. When we look at an ant so small, so delicate beneath our gaze, it may seem like a single, fragile life. And yet, when many ants come together, something remarkable happens. They begin to act not as a collection of separate creatures, but as one great whole, a living system, a superorganism. This idea may sound abstract at first. How can thousands of tiny individuals become one larger being? And yet, nature has shown us time and time again that cooperation can create something far greater than the sum of its parts. In the case of ants, their entire colony is like a body. Each ant has a role, just as the cells in our body have roles. Some ants move like red blood cells, carrying nourishment back and forth. Others act as protectors, like the immune system. And deep within the colony, the queen is like the beating heart, endlessly producing new life. The more closely scientists study ants, the more they realize that no single ant truly understands the entire system. And yet, without planning, without meetings or blueprints, the colony emerges as something whole. The way an ant follows a chemical trail, the way another brings food, the way soldiers guard the entrance, each tiny action weaves into a vast, organized pattern. Think for a moment about how our own bodies function. Our hearts beat, our lungs breathe, our cells repair damage, all without us consciously directing them. In the same way, an ant colony survives without central control. No ant is in charge, no commander issues orders, and yet the colony behaves with a kind of intelligence far larger than any one ant. Scientists call this emergent behavior. It is the idea that simple rules, followed by many individuals, create complexity, like pixels forming a picture or notes blending into music. The ant's small act of survival joined together to create harmony. Imagine a single ant walking across the soil. It stumbles upon a crumb of food, far too large to carry alone. It touches the food with its antennae, leaving behind a faint chemical trail. Another ant follows, then another and another. Within hours, hundreds of ants march in a line, carrying pieces of the crumb back to the nest. What began as the curiosity of one ant has now become the collective strength of the colony. This transformation from the individual to the superorganism is one of the great wonders of biology. It reminds us that intelligence does not always sit inside a single brain. Sometimes, intelligence lives in the space between, in the connections, in the flow of signals that tie individuals together. As we drift deeper into this hidden world, we may feel a quiet respect for the ants beneath our feet. not because they are powerful on their own, but because together they reveal the strength of unity. Their colony is not just a home, not just a nest, but a body, a mind, a living, breathing whole. And perhaps in watching them, we see echoes of our own world. For humans, too, build societies, networks, and systems far greater than ourselves. We rely on one another for food, for protection, for comfort. And though we are individuals, in many ways, we too are part of something larger. So let us rest here, in the first chamber of our journey, with the gentle thought that beneath the soil, in the quiet shadows, ants remind us of the beauty of togetherness. When we look closer, we discover that the superorganism of an ant colony is not just a poetic idea, but a scientific reality. Every individual ant has a nervous system too simple to make complex decisions on its own. And yet, when thousands of them act together, they accomplish feats that would seem impossible for such tiny beings. Consider, for example, the way ants build bridges. A small group of ants encounters a gap in the path between their nest and food. Alone, they could never cross. But instead of turning back, they begin to cling to one another, their bodies forming a living chain. More ants join, latching onto their sisters, until a solid bridge emerges. One by one, others march across, carrying food to the nest. Eventually, the bridge disassembles, and the ants return to their other tasks, as if nothing remarkable had occurred. But what is truly remarkable is that no leader directed this. There was no blueprint, no overseer shouting orders. Instead, each ant followed small instinctive rules, and from those rules, a greater intelligence emerged. This is the essence of a superorganism. Order rising from simplicity. Scientists studying ant colonies often compare them to human brains. In our minds, billions of neurons fire signals back and forth. Each neuron, by itself, is not conscious, not wise, but when they connect in vast networks, thought emerges, memory forms, and awareness blossoms. So, too, an ant colony behaves as if it has a mind, though no single ant holds a plan. Some researchers have even run experiments, removing sections of the colony or splitting it into two. Surprisingly, both parts continue to function as smaller but complete colonies. It is as though, just like the cells of our bodies, the pattern of life repeats itself at every level. Let us imagine now a bustling colony in the soft soil of a summer meadow. The queen rests deep within, protected by chambers and workers. Above, on the surface, foragers scatter like sparks of life. Some gather seeds, others harvest nectar, and all return to the nest guided by invisible trails of scent. Together, they weave a web of survival, delicate and strong. If we were to follow them, we would see that the colony's strength does not come from the might of one, but from the coordination of many. Each ant contributes a fragment of energy, a fragment of awareness, a fragment of effort. And as those fragments join, they create something far larger than themselves. This is why scientists use the term superorganism. It reminds us that just as cells create tissues, and tissues form organs, ants create societies. And those societies act like a body, complete with metabolism, defense, communication, and renewal. There is something humbling in this understanding. It tells us that intelligence is not always individual, but sometimes collective. It whispers that wisdom can be shared, stretched across many lives, braided together like roots beneath the soil. And so, when we pause to watch a line of ants moving silently across the ground, we may remember that we are not seeing separate creatures. We are glimpsing the living limbs of something larger, something whole. The more we learn about ants, the more we see that their colonies behave almost as though they are a single creature stretched across thousands of bodies. This is not only a matter of poetry, but of science, of careful observation. For example, consider the way a colony reacts to danger if a predator approaches, perhaps a beetle, or even the tread of a passing animal. The soldier ants rush forward, mandibles wide, defending the entrance. At the same time, the workers inside retreat, protecting the queen, shielding the larvae. The response is coordinated, almost reflexive, like the way our hand pulls back from a hot surface. It is not one ant deciding, but the colony itself responding like a nervous system. In the same way, the colony digests food. A single ant may bring back a seed or a crumb, but through sharing, through mouth-to-mouth exchange, the nourishment spreads until all are fed. It is as though the colony has a stomach scattered across many tiny bodies. And in yet another sense, the colony breathes. Ants dig tunnels not only to move and build, but to allow air to flow. Ventilation shafts bring oxygen down, while carbon dioxide escapes upward. The architecture itself functions like lungs, breathing in silence beneath the earth. Every system we see in our own bodies has its mirror in the life of the ants. Circulation, digestion, respiration, defense. It is as though the colony is nature's experiment, showing us that life can be organized not only within one's skin, but across many beings, united by purpose. Some scientists go even further. They suggest that the colony is not just like a body, but like a mind. The way ants solve problems, discover paths, and adjust to new challenges resembles the thought processes of a brain. No neuron knows the thought it belongs to, and no ant knows the plan of the colony. And yet, together, meaning emerges. There's a story told by naturalists about a colony faced with a flood. As rainwater poured into their nest, the ants did not scatter in panic. Instead, they clung together, forming a living raft. Workers linked their bodies, the queen and larvae safe at the center. For hours, they floated on the water until they found dry land. Then, slowly, the raft broke apart, and the ants began again. A single creature could not have survived such a trial, but the colony, the superorganism, endured. This resilience speaks to something deeper. It shows us that life can take many forms. Sometimes it is one body, one heartbeat, one self. Other times it is many bound together by invisible threads of connection. And in this way, the ants remind us of something universal. We, too, are part of greater systems. Our families, our communities, our societies are superorganisms of their own. No single person builds a city or sustains a culture. It is the weaving together of countless small actions, day after day, that creates something vast. So as we close this first keynote, let's hold gently the image of the ants, tiny beings, each with simple tasks, yet together forming a life so much greater than themselves. A life that breathes, digests, protects, remembers, and grows. A superorganism, hidden beneath the soil, reminding us that even the smallest creatures carry the wisdom of unity. At the very heart of every ant colony, in chambers deep beneath the soil, lies a single extraordinary being. She is larger than the others, slower in her movements, and often surrounded by careful attendants. She is the queen ant, the mother of the colony, the quiet source of life from which all others spring. It is tempting to imagine her as a ruler, a monarch commanding her subjects with authority. But in truth, her role is not one of command, but of creation. She does not issue orders, nor decide the colony strategies. Her gift is life itself. Through her, the colony renews and grows, generation after generation. The queen's story begins in flight. Unlike the tireless workers, who will never leave a nest, queens are born for a moment of transformation. As young princesses, they emerge from their pupal cases with wings, delicate and shimmering. On warm days, often after rainfall, countless colonies release their winged males and females into the air. This event is called a nuptial flight, a great gathering in the skies where future queens meet their mates. For a short while, the air itself hums with life. Males swarm, queens drift upward, and in a brief, delicate dance, new bonds are formed. The males soon perish, their role complete. But the fertilized queens carry within them the seeds of entire colonies. When her flight ends, the young queen descends to earth. She finds a patch of soil, soft enough to dig, and there she burrows, sealing herself within darkness. In a solemn act, she breaks off her own wings, for she will never need them again. Her life ahead will not be in the sky, but in the quiet depths of the earth. There, in her solitude, the queen lays her first eggs. At this stage, she is alone. There are no workers to feed her, no guards to protect her. She survives on the energy stored within her body, sometimes even digesting her own muscles and wing tissue to nourish her first brood. It is an act of sacrifice, the first of many, as she transforms her own strength into beginnings of a colony. When the eggs hatch, tiny larvae emerge, pale and helpless. The queen tends to them as best she can, cleaning, feeding, and protecting them. At last, the larvae pupate, and from their cocoons emerge the first workers. These daughters take over the tasks of foraging and care, allowing the queen to retreat deeper into her central role. From that point forward, she is devoted almost entirely to laying eggs. Day after day, season after season, the queen becomes the pulse of the colony. Each egg she produces is another heartbeat, another step in the rhythm of growth. A single queen may lay hundreds of eggs in a single day, thousands over her lifetime. And in this way, she sustains the colony's future, her quiet labor hidden in the shadows. Her longevity is another wonder, where workers may live for only weeks or months, and soldiers perhaps a little longer. Queens endure. In some species, a queen may live for decades, outlasting generation after generation of her daughters. She is, in many ways, the colony's memory, a living thread tying past the present. If we were to imagine the colony as a body, then the queen is not a ruler's mind, but heart, beating steadily, tirelessly, giving life to all. Her strength is not in control, but in abundance. Her gift is renewal, season after season, life flowing outward from her in an endless stream. And so, the queen ant rests at the center, silent, hidden yet essential. She is the source of the superorganism's vitality, the mother of multitudes, the quiet heartbeat of the colony itself. As the colony grows, the queen becomes ever more hidden, her world reduced to the dark, protective chambers deep beneath the soil, surrounded by layers of earth, attended by countless daughters. She may never again see the sunlight after her nuptial flight. And yet, in that quiet darkness, she carries out her life's work with quiet persistence. What is remarkable is not only her endurance, but her biology. Inside her body are vast reserves of sperm, stored carefully from that single mating flight long ago. Amazingly, this store can last for years, even decades, allowing her to fertilize eggs throughout her lifetime. She controls whether an egg is fertilized or not. Fertilized eggs become females, the workers and future queens. Unfertilized eggs, by contrast, develop into males. In this way, she quietly balances the needs of the colony, adjusting its population without any counsel or debate. Her attendants, the worker ants who surround her, treat her with extraordinary care. They groom her, feed her through mouth-to-mouth exchange, and carry away her waste. To them, she is both mother and anchor, the being whose health ensures their own survival. When she grows weak, they respond with urgency. When she thrives, the colony flourishes. Scientists have marveled at the chemicals she produces. The queen's body releases pheromones, subtle chemical signals that spread through the colony. These signals tell the workers that a queen is present and healthy. They suppress the development of reproductive organs in the workers, ensuring that only the queen lays eggs. In this way, her influence extends far beyond her chamber, shaping the biology and behavior of thousands of ants. Imagine, for a moment, the rhythm of her life. Day after day, she rests in the shadows, laying egg after egg, while her daughters whisk them away, caring for them with delicate precision. She does not see the foraging lines, the battles at the nest entrance, or the tunnels expanding outward. And yet, all of it flows from her. Every new worker, every soldier, every princess waiting for her own flight, traces back to her quiet labor. There are stories from field observations where entire colonies collapsed when their queen died. Without her, no new workers emerged, and slowly the population dwindled. Even the bravest soldiers, even the most tireless foragers, could not keep the colony alive once its heart was gone. The queen's presence is not simply symbolic. It is essential, and yet, in some species, there may be more than one queen. These colonies are called polygynous. Instead of a single heart, they possess many, spreading the responsibility of egg-laying across several mothers. This, too, is nature's way of ensuring survival, showing us that even among ants, there is no single blueprint for success. What is most striking, perhaps, is how the queen's existence is both grand and humble. She is a mother of thousands, perhaps millions, and yet she lives her life almost entirely unseen. She is not adorned with a crown, not decorated in glory. Her power is quiet, hidden, devoted wholly to the continuation of her colony. This quiet devotion resonates with us, reminding us that strength is not always loud, and leadership is not always command. Sometimes, true strength is found in patience, in endurance, in the steady giving of life and care over many years. So when we picture the queen, we may imagine not a ruler sitting on a throne, but a heart, steady and calm, pulsing life into the superorganism day after day, night after night. As centuries of naturalists have observed, the queen ant is not merely a mother, but the living thread that ties a colony's generations together. Her existence stretches far beyond the brief lives of her workers, her soldiers, and even her winged sons and daughters. She is continuity, the steady flame in a world of constant change. In some species, she may live 10, 15, even 20 years. For an insect, this span is extraordinary, a life longer than many birds, longer than countless small mammals. It is as though nature has poured all its endurance into this single being, knowing that the fate of thousands rests upon her longevity. And what of her daughters? The workers who attend her never reproduce themselves. Their lives are short, their days filled with endless labor. And yet, through the queen, their lineage continues. Their loyalty to her is not born of commands, but of chemical whispers that remind them of their shared purpose. They are not just serving her. They are serving the greater self, that is, the colony. There are stories from the tropics, where researchers have found colonies so vast, so intricate, that it seemed impossible one queen could sustain them. And yet she had, year after year, deep in the heart of the earth, her offspring filled the forest with trails, defended borders, harvested seeds, and cultivated fungus. And still, at the center, there was only her, laying egg after egg in the quiet dark. But the queen's story is not always eternal. When at last her strength wanes, the colony feels a shift. Eggs grow fewer, workers dwindle, and the superorganism begins to fade. Sometimes, young queens may rise to take her place, leaving on their nuptial flights, ensuring that the lineage continues elsewhere. Other times, the colony dies with her, its life ending as hers does. This cycle, though solemn, is also beautiful. It shows us that life is not only about individuals, but about continuity. The queen's role is not to reign, but to ensure that the story of her colony does not end. Her life is both sacrifice and abundance, her strength both silent and immense. When we pause to imagine her, resting deep in her chamber, surrounded by daughters who tend her every need, we may feel a kind of reverence, not the reverence we give to kings and queens in history, but something gentler, a quiet respect for devotion. She is the embodiment of persistence, the soft heartbeat of an underground world. And perhaps, as we drift in thought, we recognize something of ourselves in her. For in our own lives, there are moments when we, too, become quiet sources of strength, when we nurture others, when we endure patiently, when we give without asking for recognition. The queen ant reminds us that greatness need not be seen to be real. And so, as the soil settles above her chamber and the colony hums softly in the dark, we leave her here, at the center of it all, not a ruler with commands, but a mother with gifts, a life devoted entirely to the continuation of her people. The queen ant, quiet, unseen, eternal, and essential. If the queen ant is the heart of the colony, then the workers are its hands and feet, its muscles and motion. They are the countless daughters born from the queen's steady labor, and they fill every corner of the nest with life. Workers are the smallest members of the colony, and yet, without them, nothing would function. They are the foragers, the builders, the caretakers, and the explorers. Every task, from carrying seeds to digging tunnels to feeding larvae, rests upon their tireless energy. It is easy to think of them as ordinary, as anonymous beings, blending into the endless lines we see on the ground. But in truth, each worker ant is remarkable, guided by instincts so precise that together they create one of nature's most efficient societies. Imagine, for a moment, the life of a single worker. She emerges from her pupal case, pale and soft, her body not yet hardened. Her sisters clean her gently, and soon her exoskeleton darkens, her strength awakening. Almost immediately, she begins her work. In the beginning, young workers often remain inside the nest. They tend to the eggs, feeding the larvae with food brought by older foragers. They clean the chambers, carrying waste away to special refuse piles. And they groom the queen, licking and brushing her body, ensuring that her health remains steady. As they age, workers shift roles. Some begin to build, digging new tunnels, carrying grains of soil in their jaws, expanding the colony's chambers. Others venture outside, learning to follow scent trails, discovering paths to food, and carrying their treasures back. This gradual change of duties is called age polytheism. It is as though each worker has a life path, beginning in the nursery and ending on the foraging trail. When we see a line of ants marching across the ground, it is the workers we are watching. They are the visible face of the colony, though their lives are mostly hidden. Each carries loads many times their weight, crumbs, seeds, or even other insects. What is impossible for one becomes routine for many. Workers also care for one another. Through a process called trophallaxis, they share food mouth to mouth, passing nourishment like a chain of life through the colony. This act is not only practical, but social. It reinforces bonds, ensuring that each ant is connected to her sisters by more than just duty. And though they are tireless, their lives are brief. Most workers live only a few months, some perhaps a year, before they fall. But their short lives are woven into something timeless. While the individual fades, the colony continues. In this way, workers are like the cells of body, dying and renewing, so that the larger organism may endure. There is beauty in their anonymity. A worker ant does not seek glory. She does not claim reward. Her purpose is found in the act of serving. And together, she and her countless sisters keep the colony alive, moving and thriving. So, when we pause to watch them, tiny specks on the soil, carrying burdens far too large for their size, let us remember that they are not insignificant. They are the living heartbeat of the superorganism. They are workers, daughters, caretakers, and explorers. They are the colony's strength made visible. When we look more closely at the lives of worker ants, what shines most clearly is their extraordinary teamwork. Alone, a worker is small, fragile, and easily swept aside. But together, they become a force of astonishing strength, able to reshape landscapes, overcome obstacles, and build societies that endure for generations. Consider how they forage. A single worker wanders outward, searching quietly for food. When she finds something valuable, a crumb, a seed, or a fallen insect, she lays down a chemical trail on her way back to the nest. This trail is like a glowing path in the invisible world of scent. Soon, her sisters follow, their antennae twitching, reading the chemical signals left behind. One becomes many, and soon a long line forms, flowing like a river of determination between nest and food. If the resource is large, far too big for one ant, they gather around together. They grip with their jaws, pulling in unison, adjusting their movements until the object shifts. What seemed impossible begins to move. Piece by piece, inch by inch, they carry it home. This cooperation is not planned by a leader, not commanded by any single ant, but guided by simple instincts that harmonize beautifully when multiplied. In some species, workers even build living bridges. They link their bodies together, gripping each other tightly, forming chains that span gaps, or ladders that others can climb. Imagine a chasm in the forest floor, wide enough to stop one ant alone. But as workers join, their bodies become a bridge, and soon hundreds cross safely over the living structure. And when all have passed, the bridge dismantles, each ant continuing her duties as if nothing unusual had happened. Problem solving, too, belongs to the workers. If a path is blocked, they will search for another. If a rival colony intrudes, they organize defenses. If food is scarce, they widen their search. Each ant has only simple rules to follow, but together, those rules create adaptability. The colony seems to think, to decide, though no single mind controls it. It is intelligence without a brain, wisdom born from thousands of tiny lives, working as one. And then there are their many roles. Some tend to the queen, feeding and grooming her. Others care for the larvae, moving them to warmer or cooler chambers as the weather shifts. Still others act as guard at the entrance, watching for intruders. And many more foragers, venturing outward into the uncertain world. Each role may shift over time, depending on the colony's needs. There is no selfishness, no resistance, only service to the greater whole. When danger comes, workers do not hesitate. They may swarm a predator, stinging or biting until it retreats. They may sacrifice themselves, giving their lives so that their sisters and their queen may endure. It is not bravery as we know it, but it feels like courage nonetheless, a silent devotion to the colony. And yet, within this endless labor, there's also gentleness. Workers groom one another, carefully cleaning their sisters with patient strokes of their antennae. They comfort the larvae, carrying them tenderly, like nurses with their charges. Even in their world of toil, there is care, a quiet expression of connection. As we watch them, scurrying in endless lines, we might be tempted to see only mindless routine. But in truth, each worker is part of a miracle of cooperation, a society more harmonious than many we know. They embody the beauty of unity, of countless small lives creating something far larger than themselves. In the hush of the underground nest, the workers continue their ceaseless rhythm. They do not pause to wonder how long their lives will last, though for many it is only a few short weeks. From the moment they emerge, pale and fragile, until the day they finally slow, their existence is woven into service. And yet, within this brevity, lies a meaning as vast as the forest above. We may think of life as measured in years, in milestones, in achievements. But for the worker ant, meaning is found in the present moment, in the act of contributing to something greater than herself. Each seed carried, each tunnel dug, each larva tended, is part of a grand design that no single ant can fully see. It is trust, blind and pure, in the unseen whole. Imagine, if you will, a worker returning from the surface, carrying a fragment of food 3 times her size. The path is long, the burden heavy, and yet she does not waver. Along the way, she brushes against her sisters, exchanging signals, strengthening the invisible network of communication. And when she finally sets her treasure down in the food chamber below, she does not rest in pride. She turns immediately to the next task, her devotion unbroken. In some species, workers are even farmers. They cultivate fungus, carefully feeding it with gathered leaves, tending its growth as though it were a delicate garden. Others herd aphids, stroking them gently with antennae, coaxing them to release droplets of sweet honeydew. These tiny farmers live lives of routine, but within that routine lies patience, skill, and an almost tender guardianship. There are also workers who spend their short days entirely in the nest, never once seeing the sunlight. They move the brood from chamber to chamber, regulate the temperature, and pass food mouth to mouth to sisters who return from outside. Their world is narrow, but essential. They are like the heartbeat of the colony, unseen, but keeping life in motion. And so, whether on the surface trails or in the hidden caverns, the workers form a living fabric of the colony. They are the hands, the builders, the nurses, the gatherers. Without them, the queen would starve, the larvae would perish, and the colony's rhythm would fall silent. There's a quiet lesson here. In our own lives, we sometimes overlook the small acts, the unnoticed efforts that keep our worlds turning. But just as the workers' contributions build an empire beneath the soil, so too do our smallest kindnesses. Our everyday tasks create a foundation for those around us. The greatness of society often rests not in its leaders, but in its unseen laborers, its patient workers. And perhaps, as we drift deeper into thought, we can admire the grace in such selflessness. The worker ant does not ask for recognition, does not need a name carved into memory. Her fulfillment lies only in the act of serving, in the knowledge, unspoken, instinctive, that she belongs. So, as the night settles and the soil above the nest grows cool, imagine thousands of tiny workers, still moving, still tending, their lives flickering like sparks in the great, enduring flame of the colony, short-lived, yet eternal, because their devotion ensures the survival of something greater. The worker ants, humble and tireless, remind us of the quiet beauty of lives given in service, of purpose found not in glory, but in giving. If the workers are the arms and hands of the colony, then the soldiers are its shield, its walls, and its silent watchmen. They are larger, stronger, and equipped with powerful jaws, shaped by evolution for the single task of defense. Soldier ants do not build, they do not forage, they do not tend to the young. Instead, they dedicate their lives to protection. At the entrances of the nest, they wait, broad-headed and vigilant, ready to ward off invaders. When danger comes, be a rival colony, a hungry predator, or even a wandering intruder, they respond with swift, unflinching force. Their appearance alone sets them apart. While a worker may be small and slender, the soldier is often massive in comparison. Her head wide, her mandibles like scythes. Some species produce soldiers so large that they seem like giants among their sisters. And yet, despite their formidable looks, they are not cruel. They fight only when needed, when the safety of the colony demands it. Imagine the entrance to a nest, a dark tunnel in the earth. At its mouth stands a soldier, her body still, her antennae gently sweeping the air. Every vibration, every chemical signal, every shift in the soil is registered in her awareness. She is calm, but ready. Her presence alone is enough to deter many would-be attackers. When a rival ant from another colony approaches, a battle may unfold. Ant wars are fierce, and the soldiers are at the front lines. They grapple with enemies, locking jaws, using their size to overpower smaller foes. Some species even sacrifice themselves, blocking tunnels with their bodies, sealing off the nest at the cost of their own lives. And yet, the life of a soldier is not endless conflict. Much of their time is spent in stillness, in readiness. They do not seek out battle, but they remain prepared like quiet guardians at a temple gate. This patience, this enduring vigilance, is as much a part of their service as the brief moments of violence. Their strength is not only physical. Soldiers also serve as leaders in moments of crisis. When workers panic, scattering at the approach of danger, soldiers anchor the colony's response. Their calmness spreads, guiding their sisters into coordinated defense. And though their role may seem limited, it is essential. Without soldiers, the colony will be vulnerable, its food store stolen, its queen exposed. The workers could not tend their young in peace, nor could the colony grow beyond infancy. The soldiers ensure safety, and safety allows the colony to flourish. There's a quiet nobility in their presence. They may not forage, they may not nurture, but their sacrifice ensures that others can. They embody the principle that every life in the colony, no matter how specialized, serves the whole. So, when we look upon a soldier ant, we are seeing an embodiment of devotion, of readiness, of a life lived entirely in service protection. They are the guardians, the defenders, the patient sentinels of the ant world. In the colony, soldiers are more than just warriors. They're strategists, living fortresses, and sometimes even living tools. Each species has its own way of shaping soldiers, and the roles they play reveal the astonishing creativity of nature. Take, for instance, the turtle ants of the tropics. Their soldiers possess broad, flat heads shaped almost like shields. These heads are not just for biting. They are used to block the nest entrances. When danger approaches, a soldier turtle ant will simply lodge herself in the tunnel, sealing it with the perfect fit of her head. No intruder can pass, unless they defeat her. It is defense by design, nature's architecture expressed in flesh and bone. In leafcutter ant colonies, soldiers patrol the foraging lines. As workers march in endless streams, carrying fragments of leaves back to the nest, soldiers walk beside them, standing guard. Their powerful jaws are ready to fend off parasitic flies, who would otherwise attack the workers and lay eggs upon them. Without the soldiers, the stream of workers would falter, vulnerable to constant harassment. With them, the river of green leaf fragments flows undisturbed, a living current beneath the forest canopy. Other species take defense even further. Some soldiers release chemical sprays, stinging toxins, or form living barricades with their bodies. A few species of ants, known as exploding ants, have soldiers capable of rupturing themselves, releasing a sticky, toxic substance that entangles and poisons their enemies. A final act of sacrifice given for the survival of the colony. To us, it may seem tragic, but in the quiet logic of the ants, it is the highest form of devotion, and soldiers rarely act alone. Defense is not the work of one, but of many. When a threat is detected, pheromone signals spread like ripples, summoning soldiers to the site. They coordinate in silence, forming lines, ambushes, or defensive circles. Each soldier responds instinctively, yet the result is as though an invisible commander were directing their every move. This is the genius of the superorganism. Individuals acting together, becoming one mind, one will. The battles they fight can be fierce. Colonies of army ants, for example, may clash with rivals in brutal wars, where thousands of soldiers lock jaws, forming a seething mass of combat. The air fills with the sharp scent of alarm pheromones, and the ground becomes a battlefield of snapping mandibles. And yet, as violent as these moments may seem, they are but a fragment of the soldiers' lives. Most of their time is quiet, still, filled with watchfulness rather than war. It is this balance between patience and ferocity that makes soldiers so remarkable. They are not reckless aggressors, nor constant fighters. They are guardians, present only when needed, fading into the background when peace holds. And though they may not carry food or raise the young, their contribution is no less vital. The colony rests secure because its soldiers stand ready, and this security allows workers to forage freely. Nurses attend the brood, and the queen to lay her eggs in peace. The soldier's strength creates a sanctuary for life. As we imagine these quiet defenders, it is easy to see them only as fighters. But they are more than that. They are a symbol of unity, of devotion without question, of strength lent not for the self, but for the whole. Every soldier ant reminds us that true protection is not about domination, but about service. If you think of a colony as a city beneath the soil, the soldiers are its walls, its gates, and its watchtowers. They stand where danger may come, but most of the time, danger does not. This means that a soldier ant's life is often one of waiting. Imagine them positioned near the nest entrance, their antennae gently moving, their mandibles slightly parted. The air carries countless scents. Faint vibrations travel through the soil. They sense it all, but many hours pass in silence. The soldiers remain still, living statues of protection. This stillness is not wasted. It is the readiness that matters. A colony does not thrive on constant battle. It thrives on the assurance that if battle comes, it is prepared. That assurance is what the soldiers give. There is something deeply poetic in the life of a soldier ant. They are born not to seek food, not to raise the next generation, but to ensure that those who do can live without fear. Their very existence is an act of trust, of responsibility. They are protectors who may never see the moments when their vigilance saves lives. And yet, they stand guard anyway. Some species refine their soldiers to extraordinary shapes. Bullet ants, known for their painful sting, have soldiers that are both feared and respected in the forests. Other ants, like the wood ants of Europe, train armies of soldiers to spray formic acid at predators. Each adaptation tells the same story. Nature has carved the role of protector into countless forms. The sacrifice of soldiers is sometimes absolute. When floods threaten, some soldiers form living walls at the edges of ant rafts, exposing themselves to the elements so that the inner workers and queen may survive. In moments of invasion, they may lock themselves into tunnels. Their bodies plug into passage so that nothing passes through. In these final acts, we glimpse the depth of their devotion. But devotion is not always dramatic. Most soldier ants will live quiet lives, never engaging in war. They will simply stand watch, generation after generation, embodying safety, embodying patience. And in that patience, they become part of the colony's heartbeat, a silent rhythm of protection. When we look at soldiers, we might see strength, but beneath that, there is gentleness too. Gentleness in their stillness, gentleness in their devotion, gentleness in their willingness to protect without seeking glory. The life of a soldier ant reminds us of a simple truth, that strength is not always loud, nor violent, nor restless. Sometimes the greatest strength is the quiet presence of someone who is simply there, holding the line, so that others may live freely. So, as we leave this part of the journey, picture the soldier ants standing guard at the edge of the nest, heads raised, antennae sweeping softly through the air. They wait, they watch, and because of them, the hidden city of the colony sleeps in peace. If the ant colony is a superorganism, then communication is its nervous system. And unlike humans, ants do not rely on speech or song or even sight to share their thoughts. Instead, they speak in scents, in delicate chemical trails called pheromones. Pheromones are invisible to our eyes, yet to the ants, they are as clear as written words. Every ant has special glands that produce these chemical signals. With a gentle touch of the antennae or a trail laid across the ground, one ant can tell another where food lies, where danger waits, or when it is time to move the colony. Imagine a single worker ant discovering a crumb of food. She does not carry the entire treasure back alone. Instead, on her journey home, she drags the tip of her abdomen along the path, releasing a trail of pheromones. This invisible road becomes a guide, leading her sisters directly to the food. Soon, what was once a single worker's discovery becomes a highway of ants, each following the chemical signature as faithfully as if it were a shining light. But the beauty of pheromone communication is not only in its simplicity, it is in its adaptability. If the food is plentiful, the trail grows stronger, reinforced by every ant that passes. The scent becomes a chorus, a collective vote that says, "Here! Here is where the treasure lies." If the food disappears, the trail fades, and the highway of ants dissolves back into silence. Ants also use pheromones to sound the alarm. When a predator intrudes, a soldier may release a sharp burst of chemicals, an invisible shout that calls others to battle. In an instant, ants swarm to the site, guided not by sight, not by sound, but by the urgent scent of danger. Even inside the nest, pheromones weave the colony together. The queen, hidden deep within, produces special signals that reassure her workers of her presence. As long as her pheromones are strong, the workers know the colony is stable, thriving, united. If her signal weakens, it is as though the heart of the colony has grown faint, and the workers respond in kind. It is humbling to imagine such a complex world of language existing in silence beneath our feet. We, with our words and voices, may think of ourselves as great communicators. Yet here, in the miniature lives of ants, is a reminder that communication does not need sound, or sight, or writing. It can exist in the simplest of forms, a shared signal, a scent, a trail in the dust. And so, as we pause in this first part, picture the ground beneath you alive with invisible writing. Every ant you see is both reader and author, leaving messages for others, following messages left before. It is a library of sense, always changing, always guiding, always alive. Pheromones, though simple in essence, create a system of communication so rich that it allows millions of ants to act as one. This is not language as we know it, but a symphony of chemicals, layered and intertwined, guiding every choice the colony makes. There are different types of pheromones, each carrying a unique message. Some are trail pheromones, those that guide workers to food. Others are alarm pheromones, sharp and urgent, warning of danger. There are aggregation pheromones, calling ants to gather, and recognition pheromones, allowing ants to know friend from stranger. Even reproductive pheromones exist, ensuring that when the time comes, Males and queens find each other in the swarming skies. Consider how extraordinary this is. A human city might require loudspeakers, traffic lights, written laws, and complex planning to keep its citizens moving in harmony. An ant colony, without a single word spoken, does the same with nothing but scent. Let's take a gentle example. Picture a colony faced with two possible food sources. A worker discovers the first and leaves a trail. Another worker discovers the second and does the same. At first, both trails are faint, equally fragile, equally uncertain. But as ants return along these paths, they reinforce them with fresh pheromones. If one source of food is larger or easier to reach, more ants will use that trail. The chemical signal grows stronger there and weaker on the other path. Without any central decision maker, the colony naturally chooses the better source. This process, so elegant and self-organizing, is sometimes called collective intelligence. Scientists have even borrowed these ideas to design computer algorithms. Ant colony optimization, a method used in computer science, is inspired by the way ants find the shortest path to food. Just as ants follow and reinforce successful trails, these algorithms find efficient solutions to difficult problems. It is a beautiful reminder that even the tiniest creatures can teach us about order, about problem solving, about wisdom. But pheromone communication is not only about efficiency, it is also about identity. Each colony has its own unique scent profile, a blend of chemicals that marks every member as belonging. When an ant encounters another, they gently touch antennae, exchanging chemical cues. If the scent is familiar, they pass by in peace. If it is foreign, the reaction may be suspicion or even aggression. This chemical identity is the colony's shield, ensuring that outsiders cannot easily blend in. And within the nest itself, pheromones regulate harmony. They suppress rivalry, guide workers to their duties, and even signal when it is time for the colony to grow. The queen's pheromones in particular act like a soft hum, spreading reassurance through the chambers. As long as her scent is strong, the workers remain united. When it weakens, the colony begins to prepare for change, sometimes raising new queens or dividing into new settlements. What is most calming is to think of this not as noise, but as harmony. Imagine the air within the nest filled with invisible threads, each thread a signal, each signal a soft note, and together they weave a song of unity. The ants are not aware of it in the way we are, but they live inside this silent song, guided by it, nurtured by it. So in this part, we see pheromones not only as simple markers, but as a glue of society. They bind the colony together, they give it memory, and they allow millions of tiny individuals to think as one mind, one being, one whole. The world outside the nest is never still. Food sources appear and vanish. Predators prowl and retreat. The rains fall, and the earth shifts. For ants to survive, their communication system must be more than simple signals. It must be flexible, responsive, alive. And so it is. When a colony faces danger, the pheromone alarm system can take many forms. A soldier ant may release a sharp burst of chemicals, and within seconds, dozens of workers abandon their tasks, rushing to the source of alarm. Yet not all alarm pheromones mean attack. Some carry subtler meanings: to scatter, to retreat, to hide. Different species have developed different alarm codes, like variations in dialect. And in this way, each colony is tuned to its own survival strategy, honed by generations. Pheromones also help ants adapt to obstacles in their search for food. Imagine a trail leading to a fallen fruit, and suddenly a branch blocks the way. The first ants to encounter the obstacle scatter, searching for new paths. When one finds a route around it, she lays a new trail. Others follow, reinforce, and soon the colony's entire highway shifts seamlessly. The old path fades, the new one strengthens, and the ants continue as if nothing had happened. This resilience shows us how a system built on simple rules can overcome complexity and even mimic decision-making. And in times of abundance, pheromones tell a different story. When the rains bring nectar-rich blossoms, trails multiply, branching out like veins in a leaf. The air becomes thick with overlapping signals, yet ants, with their sensitive antennae, can distinguish and prioritize them. Some follow the freshest, strongest scents. Others carry food back, reinforcing those trails, ensuring they remain alive. In this way, the colony expands like a living map, its routes shifting and adapting, written in invisible ink. But perhaps the most remarkable example of pheromone communication comes during the great swarming flights. On warm, humid days, young queens and males leave the nest, drawn into the sky by special pheromones. It is as though the colony breathes outward, releasing its children to the wind. These winged ants, guided by pheromones, gather in great clouds, searching for partners, beginning new colonies. Here again, the invisible signals orchestrate life's great cycle, from one generation to the next. Even death is marked by pheromones. When an ant dies, her body releases a specific chemical. This death pheromone tells her sisters to carry her away from the nest, preventing disease. It is a gentle act of care, a final service to the colony, carried out without ceremony, yet full of meaning. When we pause to reflect, we see that pheromones shape every moment of an ant's existence. They tell her where to walk, when to work, when to fight, when to rest, when to live, and when to let go. It is a language without words, yet it holds the weight of survival, of cooperation, of belonging in our world. We might compare it to the unseen forces that bind us together, the unspoken signals of trust, the quiet gestures of care, the subtle currents of mood in a room. We, too, like ants, are guided by more than words. We live within our own invisible songs, our own soft harmonies, carrying us through life. And so, as we close this third part, let's picture the ant colony again. Not silent, not chaotic, but alive with messages carried in the air, in the earth, in the delicate brush of antennae. It is a hidden world, yet a deeply ordered one, reminding us that communication need not be loud to be powerful. When you think of ants, you might imagine them all the same, small, dark, tireless insects, each doing its share work. But if we look closer, much closer, we find that the story is far richer. Ants are not just a single kind of creature repeating the same life. They are a vast family with more than 12,000 species described, and perhaps thousands more waiting to be discovered. And within this diversity, nature has painted an astonishing range of roles, behaviors, and ways of living. The colony itself is already a miracle of roles. Queens, workers, soldiers, each devoted to their tasks. But across species, evolution has added layers of complexity, bending, shaping, and refining these roles in fascinating directions. Some ants farm, others herd. Some are raiders, others are architects, and still others are explorers of symbiosis. Each adaptation is a story written in time, shaped by environment, and whispered through generations. Let's begin with the farming ants, the famous leafcutter ants, found in the tropical rainforests of the Americas. These ants are known as nature's gardeners. They cut pieces of fresh leaves, far too large for their own bodies, and carry them in long processions back to their nests. But they do not eat the leaves directly. Instead, they use them to cultivate fungus, their true food. The fungus is carefully tended, nourished, and protected generation after generation. This is not mere instinct. It is agriculture, and it shows us how ants can shape entire ecosystems, creating farms hidden beneath the soil. In another corner of the world, some ants act as herders. They protect tiny sap-feeding insects called aphids. In exchange for protection, the aphids provide the ants with sweet honeydew. The ants gently stroke the aphids with their antennae, encouraging them to release droplets, much like a shepherd milking livestock. Here, we see a role not of defense or farming, but of partnership, a role that stretches the boundaries of what it means to survive. Then there are the raiders. Army ants, with their relentless columns, take on a role of sheer force. They do not build permanent nests. Instead, they form living bivouacs, their own bodies linked together to shelter the queen and brood. When they march, the forest floor trembles with their presence. Every creature in their path must move or perish. This nomadic, aggressive role stands in contrast to the quiet farmers, yet both are expressions of the same truth, that ants, as a superorganism, can adapt their roles to any niche in nature. Some species specialize in roles that seem almost playful. Take the honeypot ants, found in deserts. Certain worker ants become living storage jars. Their abdomens swell with liquid food until they glisten like tiny beads of amber. They hang from the ceilings of underground chambers, waiting for their sisters to tap them gently, releasing nourishment when needed. This extraordinary role is both strange and beautiful, a living pantry, a trust carried inside a single body. We also find ants who specialize in cooperation with other creatures. Some live inside acacia trees, feeding on the plant's nectar and defending it fiercely from herbivores. In return, the tree shelters the ants within its hollow thorns. The role here is that of guardian allies, protectors who serve not just their colony, but another species altogether. Each of these roles, whether farmer, herder, raider, or guardian, reveals the creativity of evolution. It shows us that life inside an ant colony is not one pattern repeated endlessly, but a tapestry of possibilities. The colony's success is written in its flexibility, its ability to become what the environment requires. And as we reflect on these roles, we begin to see a quiet wisdom, that survival does not belong only to the strongest or the most aggressive, but to the most adaptable. Ants thrive because they have learned to embody many lives, many roles, across countless landscapes. They show us that even the smallest creatures can be farmers, warriors, shepherds, and guardians of trees. So let us rest for a moment here with the image of this diversity in mind. A rainforest colony, farming fungi deep below, a meadow colony, herding aphids among the grasses, a desert colony, hanging living honey jars in the dark, a marching army colony, weaving walls of bodies in the night, and high in an acacia tree, guardians waiting in thorns. Each colony, each role, is a thread in the vast web of life. When we imagine a life inside an ant colony, it is tempting to think of each ant born with a single fixed purpose. A worker ant forever destined to clean, or feed the brood, or forage for food. Yet the truth is gentler and far more fluid. Roles within a species and across species are shaped not just by fate, but by need, by environment, and even by the age of the ant herself. Let us first picture worker ant, newly emerged from her pupal stage. Her body is soft, her exoskeleton still pale, her energy quiet and cautious. In this early stage, she does not march boldly into the outside world. Instead, she begins with care tasks inside the nest. She cleans the brood chambers, tends to the larvae, and feeds the queen. These gentle tasks are suited to her tender strength. As she matures, her duties shift. She may become a nurse, delicately feeding larvae with regurgitated food. Later still, she will become a forager, venturing out into the world to find seeds, nectar, or prey. And in her final days, she may stand guard near the nest entrances, fulfilling a protective role. This cycle, sometimes called age polytheism, shows us that an ant's role is not rigid, but dynamic. Her life is a series of chapters, each contributing to the colony's survival. It is as if the colony whispers to her, "Now is your time to nurture. Now is your time to gather. Now is your time to defend." But across different species, evolution has painted these roles in bold strokes. In leafcutter ants, for example, workers themselves are divided into remarkable castes. The smallest workers, called minims, stay inside the nest, tending the fungal gardens. Slightly larger media workers cut and carry leaf fragments. And the largest, the majors, act as defenders, patrolling the foraging lines. Here, the very size of the ant determines her role, her body itself sculpted for a task. In some species, this specialization becomes even more extreme. Take the driver ants of Africa. Among them, the soldiers develop enormous mandibles, so large that they cannot even feed themselves. Instead, workers bring food to them, recognizing that their only task is to defend the colony during its relentless raids. These exaggerated features are nature's way of carving out a role so sharply that it cannot be mistaken. Other ants specialize not through their size, but through behaviors passed across generations. The weaver ants of Southeast Asia build nests in the trees by stitching leaves together with silk. The silk is not their own, but produced by their larvae. Workers hold the leaves in place, while others gently carry larvae, pressing their silk-producing mouths along the leaf edges. The result is a living roll construction, workers becoming seamstresses of the forest canopy. This is not instinct alone, but coordinated effort, each worker understanding her place in the weaving process. If we pause here, we begin to see a profound truth. The colony does not survive because each ant is identical. It thrives because roles are distributed, fluid when needed, rigid when required, and always attuned to the greater whole. And still, nature has gone further. Some ants have evolved roles that almost appear like stories out of legend. There are species known as slave-making ants, who raid neighboring colonies, capturing their brood, and raising the young as part of their own colony. In these colonies, the role of the raider is embedded deeply, while the enslaved ants unwittingly become workers for their captors. Though harsh, it is another expression of survival, of roles reshaped through the pressures of competition. Others live as parasites in the nests of different ant species. They slip quietly into foreign colonies, disguising themselves with chemical mimicry. Once accepted, They may take on roles of feeding or even replacing the native queen. These ants are specialists of deception, a role written not in muscle or mandibles, but in chemistry and cunning. As we reflect on these examples, we begin to notice something soothing, almost meditative. Ant life is not uniform. It is a spectrum where roles shift, overlap, specialize, and sometimes astonish us. Within one colony, an ant may live several roles across her life. Across species, whole castes may evolve into living tools, jaws that cut, abdomens that store, bodies that weave, and behaviors that protect or deceive. It is like watching an orchestra, but not of violins and flutes, of living beings. Each instrument may differ. Each note may carry a unique tone, but together they create a symphony of survival. So let's rest here again with that gentle image, the orchestra of the ant world. Each species adding a note, each role a melody played softly through time. The farmers, the herders, the soldiers, the guardians, and the deceivers, all part of the quiet music of the earth. As we look across the many kinds of ants scattered across forests, deserts, grasslands, and even city streets, a gentle truth becomes clear. No single species carries the same pattern of roles. Instead, each has written its own script, a quiet adaptation tailored to its environment. Consider the honeypot ants, who live in the deserts of North America and Africa. Here, water and food are scarce, and survival depends on storing resources for the long dry spells. Certain workers, known as repletes, take on the unusual role of living storage vessels. Their abdomens swell with nectar until they hang from the ceilings of underground chambers, glistening like amber beads. When famine comes, the colony gently strokes these repletes, and they regurgitate their stored sweetness to feed their sisters. The replete's role is not to forage or defend, but to become a living pantry, patient and still, suspended in the quiet darkness of the nest. In the rainforest, we find another role, one of builders and architects. The leafcutter ants, as we spoke of earlier, divide their tasks by size and strength. But within their colonies, there are also roles of sanitation. Some work a patrol for waste, carrying it to special refuge chambers far from the main nest. This task may seem humble, but without it, disease would spread and the colony would suffer. Thus, the sanitary workers are guardians of health, unseen and often uncelebrated, but absolutely vital. And then there are the nomadic ants, such as the army ants. Their colonies do not build permanent nests. Instead, they form bivouacs, living walls of ants clinging to one another, sheltering the queen and brood inside. In this role, each ant becomes part of the structure itself, her body serving as wall, floor, or ceiling. She holds her place patiently, hour after hour, night after night, until the colony is ready to move again. In this way, the role is not about individual action, but about becoming a single, seamless piece of living shelter. Across all these examples, one theme shines gently through. Specialized roles allow the colony to face the world with resilience. Where one ant might fail alone, the colony adapts as a whole. Some give their strength, some give their bodies, some give their patience, and together they weave a survival story millions of years in the making. If we pause and listen quietly, the story whispers something profound about life itself. That diversity of roles creates harmony, that no single task, no matter how small, is without value. The pantry ant, the builder, the forager, the soldier, the nurse, all threads in the same delicate fabric. And so, when we think of ants as tiny, restless creatures beneath our feet, let's also think of them as teachers of balance. They show us that the world flourishes not through sameness, but through difference, not through isolation, but through connection. Even within the smallest colony, we see a lesson for ourselves, that when individuals accept their roles, shifting gently as needed, and supporting one another without question, the whole community becomes stronger, more adaptable, more enduring. So let us drift just for a moment with that thought, an unseen world, beneath soil and stone, alive with roles so carefully crafted that together they form something larger than the sum of their parts. The ant colony, in all its quiet complexity, mirrors life's greater design. It is not perfection, but cooperation, not strength alone, but shared responsibility, not uniformity, but harmony and diversity. And with that, we gently close our reflections on specialized roles across species. The tiny farmers, the living jars of sweetness, the builders, the raiders, the deceivers, and the guardians, all whispering to us of life's endless creativity. When we look at an ant, it is easy to think of it as small, fragile, almost insignificant. Yet, when we step back and view the whole colony, not as scattered individuals, but as one pulsing superorganism, a new picture emerges. This picture shows us that ant colonies are not only masters of their inner world, but also quiet architects of the larger ecosystem. Let us start beneath the soil, where many ants build their nests. As they dig, their tiny mandibles loosen grains of earth, carrying them upward, one by one, to create tunnels and chambers. This simple act of excavation, repeated endlessly by thousands of workers, has a powerful effect. It turns the soil, aerates it, mixes nutrients, and opens pathways for water to flow deeper underground. In this way, the ants act as natural tillers, enriching the earth for plants above. It is as though each nest is a little heartbeat of the soil, keeping it alive and fertile. But ants are not only diggers, they are also farmers of the sort. Some tend to fungi, feeding them carefully with cut leaves or fallen petals. In return, the fungi grow into rich food for the colony. Others care for aphids, stroking them with gentle antennae to coax drops of honeydew. Through these quiet exchanges, ants influence the balance of plants and insects nearby. A forest without its ants would not be the same forest. It would lose its careful gardeners, its quiet keepers, who maintain a delicate equilibrium. Above ground, ants also become cleaners and recyclers. They scavenge the fallen remains of insects, carry away seeds, and dismantle what is decayed. Their foraging does not simply feed themselves, also reduces waste and redistributes resources. Seeds carried by ants, tucked safely into underground chambers, may later sprout into new plants. This quiet service, called myrmicocori, shapes the very landscape, planting forests with an unseen hand. And so, from the tiniest act of digging to the subtle transport of seed, ants ripple out into the world. They are not just inhabitants of the ecosystem. They are shapers of it. Their colonies breathe life into the soil, guide the spread of plants, and balance the dance of species around them. If we pause and allow this thought to sink in, we see that an ant colony is not only a kingdom beneath our feet, but also a thread in the greater web of life, a thread that strengthens the whole, even if it remains unseen. As we drift further into this reflection, imagine a quiet forest. Birds stir softly in the branches above. A breeze brushes the leaves, and beneath the fallen logs and roots, the ants are at work. Though hidden, their influence spreads everywhere. One of the most fascinating connections lies between ants and animals. Many creatures rely on ants, whether they realize it or not. Some birds follow swarms of army ants, waiting patiently as the columns flush out insects from the undergrowth. When the ants surge forward, the forest floor trembles with movement, and the birds swoop in to catch the fleeing prey. Here, the ants become unlikely hunters for creatures far beyond their own colony. In the same forest, certain butterflies and beetles share a delicate alliance with ants. Their larvae release special chemicals that make the ants treat them like kin. In return, the ants guard these larvae, protecting them from predators. It is a quiet bargain, an exchange of safety for sweetness. Through these bonds, ants weave themselves into lives of insects, forming miniature partnerships, delicate and unseen. But ants are not only partners, they can also be protectors of the forest itself. When leaf-eating insects grow too numerous, ants may control their numbers, balancing the population. Some ant species patrol the trunks of trees, chasing away herbivores that might harm the leaves. The tree, in return, offers nectar at the base of its leaves, a small but steady gift. This trade between ant and tree keeps the forest strong and ensures the survival of both partners. Even large animals, though they may not notice it, feel the quiet hand of the ant colony. When ants enrich the soil, grasses grow thicker. When grasses spread, herbivores find food. And when herbivores thrive, predators follow. In this slow and subtle way, ants become foundation stones of the entire food web. It is humbling to realize that creatures so small, often overlooked, carry such weight in the balance of nature. If they vanish, countless other beings would feel their absence. The forest floor would change, the soil would tire, seeds would fail to spread, and the music of life would lose one of its steady rhythms. And so, as we look upon a colony not just as a nest of insects, but as an engine of the ecosystem, we see a new truth unfold. Ants are not merely participants in nature, they are its caretakers, tiny guardians, with tireless legs and quiet order holding the threads of balance together. When we reflect on all that we have seen, the image of an ant colony becomes more than tunnels and chambers, more than a queen, or workers, or soldiers. It becomes a living bridge, connecting the hidden soil to the open sky. A colony, in its quiet way, holds together the flow of nutrients, the spread of plants, and the delicate balance of life. Let us remember the soil first. The ants, by digging and turning, breathe air into the earth, mixing life back into it. They do not know, perhaps, that their work nourishes roots, that their tunnels carry rainwater deeper, or that farmers across the world unknowingly benefit from their ceaseless care. But still, the soil remembers and life above thrives. Then, there are the seeds they scatter. Some are carried far from the tree, tucked gently in underground chambers, hidden from hungry mouths. Days pass, seasons pass, and in time, new plants grow where ants once walked. The colony, by simply following instinct, becomes a planter of forests, leaving green trails in its wake. We cannot forget, too, the partnerships they weave with trees, insects, and even birds. These bonds, quiet and subtle, hold ecosystems together. A tree leaning on its ant guardians, a bird trailing behind a hunting swarm, a butterfly larva shielded by its tiny allies. All are bound in the silent agreements of nature. The ants do not boast of these roles. They do not announce their worth. They simply do what they have always done. And when we step back to see the whole, we find that ants are not only inhabitants of the world, they are keepers of its balance. They are reminders that strength does not always lie in size, but in persistence, in cooperation, and in the unseen ripples of countless small actions. So, as we bring this journey to rest, imagine again the ground beneath your feet. Somewhere, just beneath the surface, thousands of ants move silently through their tunnels. They do not know us, and yet they shape the soil that grows our food. They do not seek recognition, and yet they hold together the living threads of forests, fields, and meadows. In their quiet labor, there's a lesson for us, too, that even the smallest efforts, repeated patiently, can build worlds. That unseen work, though humble, can ripple outward to touch everything around it. And so we close this reflection on the ant colony and the ecosystem, a story of hidden caretakers, of tireless gardeners, and of a life that connects far beyond itself. Good night and goodbye, gentle dreamer. May the balance of nature and the quiet work of tiny lives bring peace to your own rest tonight.